kind of give you guys a recap on what we've been working on for the Twister pneumatics. We haven't kind of talked too much. We've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. You know, whenever you guys don't hear from us, I can promise you we're working on tons of stuff. And so, I mean, obviously the pneumatics, it's a big project. There's a lot of pieces. We've kind of redesigned a whole bunch of stuff. You know, the springs and the pressures and all sorts of different things, the pistons. And so kind of how, you know, if you guys have been following along how this project got going, we were fortunate enough to work with Anthony and Austin at Committed Paintball and be involved in the F6 project. We got all those new parts designed. We got all those manufactured. All those are already with Twister right now. So I know that they're ready to go. And I know Justin is working very hard on all the Mozak stuff. So on all the F6 bodies. So of course, you know, the Twister pneumatics kind of snowballed from an LPC to a RAM to the entire deal. And we've also been fortunate enough to link up with Danny Love and Mark at ShockTech, who have been awesome to work with. And, you know, kind of a cool experience to, you know, grow up, you know, looking up and idolizing a lot of the ShockTech guys and the stuff they do. And to be able to do a collaboration with them has been a pretty cool process. And so, of course, we worked with, it took us a long time to kind of figure out all those details and, you know, how we were going to make everything work and, you know, which parts and this and that. So as you guys know, a lot of our stuff with ShockTech, you know, we're using their shaft for the bomb. We've got the RAM internals, the RAM base, and of course the other cool thing is, and I actually got some of these here. I got all these in from ShockTech, so I appreciate all their hard work and kind of we got all these bagged and ready to go. So let's see, we worked with ShockTech on a lot of the internal components, Clippard for a lot of the different barbs. And of course, in these pneumatics, there's three separate types of barbs. You have the barb swivel on the end of the ram. You have the two barbs that go on the back of the rear part of the ram, as well as the LPR body. And then you also have the three tiny ones that go on the bomb. And so from ShockTech, from Twister to ShockTech to Clippard, as well as want to give a shout out to Mean Gene. Mean Gene helped us with source the swivels, which was awesome. And of course, Mean Gene's doing a lot of cool stuff with WGP. He's got a lot of really cool stuff coming out soon. And so we've got all those components in. As far as springs, we've been testing a lot of springs. As you guys know, or if you recall, or if you're just tuning in for the first time, one of the things that we wanted to do was go to a wave spring so that we had the shorter operating height. We could, you know, increase the length of the piston, have more volume. And not only moving from a coil to a wave to have a, you know, kind of sitting a little bit flatter, maybe operating a little bit more consistent. You guys can kind of research. There's a lot of really cool stuff about wave springs. But so we've been working with a couple companies on those. And I'll tell you, the springs, and Joshua, you'll probably have something to say about this as well. The springs is a challenging, very challenging thing. I mean, it can work great with you in the, you know, the first couple parts, and then if you go too far past, it can overpressurize. There's just there's so much going on with the springs. And
yeah, really nailing down the desired output pressure of the regulator, and then calculating the requirements for the force on the spring in the envelope that we want it to fit in. There's a lot of variables, a lot of moving targets for sure.
100%. And of course, you know, we're targeting a 17. We're targeting a stainless steel wave spring at a certain height. You know, so basically we can kind of build that volume. You guys can kind of see on here what we're talking about. But so as far as springs, we've been testing and shooting a lot of springs. We made prototype parts of kind of what we have down here on the bottom screen. You know, we had the knob, the adjuster, the new piston. We've already actually made some changes to the piston. Yeah, actually right there.
So this is, yeah, the first prototype of.
Do you have the wave spring? Do you have one of the wave spring samples with you by chance, Joshua?
Dude.
No big deal if not. But so both Josh and I have been testing that and shooting that, and we found a spring that works just fine. But you know, you guys know with autocockers, there's so many variations, there's so many different setups, and we just, long story short, we're going to go with a custom spring at this point because we just want to make sure that even if you have the perfect case scenario, you know, there's a spectrum in a sense, right? If you've got a Lazarus valve and a very light spring, a hammer spring and all those, you might not need as much force, right? But if you
So probably not the spring, the exact spring we're going with, but it gives you the idea of
super clean.
Right.
And actually, Joshua, you can show them the you can show them the previous piston, how we didn't have the O-ring guide.
Yeah, so stock piston versus our piston.
And actually the piston, we've improved that since then, so it's even longer. But so anyways, working on the spring. At this point, we're making a custom spring. Hopefully should have those within maybe 3 weeks. Yeah, so that's kind of the stock shock tech. Look, stock shock tech works fantastic. We just really wanted to kind of put our flair on all these different parts and just kind of, you know, improve things as best we could. And, you know, that's what we do. I mean, this is autocockers. That's what we enjoy doing, you know. And so anyways, so I'm trying to think. So we've been testing all these different prototypes. Now, what we want to do is we want to move you guys into what we've done. We've had to make some changes within the pneumatics. And I'll let Joshua kind of start building on all that, but we'll tell you guys kind of why we're at that point.
Yeah, so our initial one, so we got this up on the screen, yeah?
Yeah, you gotcha.
Yeah, so the initial one, this is kind of the internal geometry of ShockTech's regulator body. Some of the big challenges, well, yeah, so did we want to touch on machining these, or?
No, what we did here was, obviously you guys can see we made a new piston, we made our new internal spring perch and screw adjuster. So basically once you insert that from the backside, it can no longer fall out. And the other big thing that we tried to do here was on the knob, we actually made it rotational 360 degrees with set screws so that the logo could always be aligned, which is kind of a cool little feature, right? And of course, we had the 3 slots that kind of paid tribute to some of the earlier shock techs. And, you know, Danny loves work. So many of you guys will kind of recognize that here. But everything worked fine there. The problem that we were running into was really the twister milling, right? And Joshua, if you can maybe, or did you actually, let's back up a little bit before we go into that.
Okay.
We then took that original model and we worked through a lot of other little tweaks and designs. So Joshua, I'll let you pick back up with that, and then we can.
So that's going into the kind of second generation. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just lost where that is.
Hold on, I'll add in one thing. One of the reasons we went to the Gen 2, you guys, and a lot of you guys will know this, you know, you don't have to grease this piston that much or service it that much, but one of the difficult parts is because the barb location was on the back end, to mess with that piston or to grease it or service it, or if you had a leak or whatnot, you've got to remove that barb, slide the piston out, relock, you know, put it back in, relock, tight it. So
yeah, Gant's referring to where the barb would thread in. So to maintenance this, you had to remove this barb or a minimum unhook the hose. Yeah. So the Gen 2, we went, I keep losing that, Gen 2.
Do we have any interesting things in the other folders over there that we, any little Easter eggs we're not thinking about?
Probably not super obvious, but maybe. So you can see here the barb location of the original versus the new barb location. The other thing we did with Gen 2 is we gave it more. So what this did is it allows you to move the front half of the reg body without having to undo the barb. It also gained us more meat for the threads on the barb. Occasionally, people would strip out the barb on the side of the standard shock tech. So we thought, hey, there's an improvement we can make. Yeah. While we're at it, we also, you can see the increase in volume here. So if I hide the first one.
And just to clarify, guys, if it's not as clear, we took the barb position. Okay, hold on a second. The barb position was in the front half. We moved.
It's basically in the same spot, but where we split the body was different, right?
Correct. So
the original, the split was behind the barb. With our Gen 2, the split was in front.
Correct.
I can't really show the two bodies, but you can see.
This design moved us in the direction of more volume, more threaded section for the barb, thread engagement, and then also being able to split the body without interfering with the barb to be able to pull the piston out.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see right here, that's where it would split in the second generation. Whereas again, the first generation split back here behind the barb.
Right.
But as Gant kind of alluded to before, I believe he did anyway, the the concern was the twister pattern matching from front to back, being able to for sure nail that down. So we go back and forth with the manufacturers and
and I think you guys would probably agree, like, I think the worst case scenario, and it's difficult because that twister milling looks so cool, right? Like it is, but of course this is on screen, right? So being able to execute that, so we would be machining two separate halves, and we just, you know, then they have to fixture these and then machine it all at the same time. There's a lot of complexity and complication there. So we just ultimately, we were worried that if those two halves didn't align just perfectly, I know it would bother me. And I know that a lot of the F6 guys and the twister guys would probably feel the same way, you know? And so really we were just like, you know what, it's just not worth the risk. And I know that kind of Anthony and Twister have run into some of this issue as well with, you know, barrels or different things of that nature. I know on the Powerhouse regs, I was kind of asking Anthony about that because if you guys remember, they did a lot of the Twister Powerhouse collaborations, which was really cool. But I think one thing that they were able to do to get those two halves to align was because the Powerhouse has the internal rotational system, they were able to screw that down, lock the halves together, and then machine that, right? So again, the really, we since Gen 1, we've pushed the envelope of more volume improvements, the O-ring guide on the front of the piston, the bosses, thread engagement, all of those things. But then ultimately, finding out the difficulty of having those two halves match, we've gone in a third direction. So we want to show you guys that.
Sure. So that's the Gen 3 here above. So on this one, you can see the body is now one piece. There's no split in the center of the reg body. So you're still able to pull everything out the front. More, I guess, kind of similar to like the old AKA LPRs.
Yep. Inception. Trying to think of who else does it kind of out the front like that. I
guess Inception, which is kind of their take on the AKA one. Which who else was it? I'm drawing a blank on it.
Yeah, there's another one I'm thinking about. But the main thing here was to maintain maximum volume, the wave spring, the guided piston. We added the new O-ring, the thread engagement, the serviceability, being able to pull it out. But as you can see in this shot, go ahead, Joshua.
And not having a split in the body to have to align the twister milling on the outside. Right. So they'll be able to easily machine, more easily machine the twist pattern and not have to worry about clocking or alignment of the two halves.
Mm-hmm.
But having it be one piece and splitting, we couldn't use the original screw knob design. Is that what we call it?
I don't know exactly. Well, I don't know what we were going to name it yet, Joshua, but I wanted to add one little point to what you were saying there is, but we are going to make a small amount for those that are looking for that upgrade still. It's going to be the knob, the 3/16 stainless steel adjuster, as well as the wave spring and piston combo that you can then drop back in retroactively, retrofit it to any of the ShockTech LPRs. So that's going to be pretty cool. And just one other tidbit with that, just in the previous design, which had a shorter piston, so it didn't have as much volume, we were seeing 10 to 12 PSI operating pressure drop in the LPR just with that setup, right? So we'll have some of these new prototypes here in a couple weeks, and hopefully we can kind of, further test that. But for those that are curious and have been asking, that combination, we'll have a small amount of those that will be available.
So that leads us again to the final design. Let me hide this one, so we don't need that anymore. So our Gen 3 rig will have a different knob. Cosmetically, it'll look basically the same as the first two generations. But to accommodate the single piece body, we had to kind of change that design around in a way that made sense. Didn't have a lot of parts. Do you want to move on to the three-way now?
Well, actually, Joshua, do you want to take them through the knob? Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the knob.
Sure.
one thing that we did in the knob is also, because you're no longer having the set screw tensioning, we've gone to the O-ring basically. But yeah, I'll let you walk them through the knob. There's a lot of stuff going on in this knob.
Yeah, where to start? So again, the front end cosmetically is the same. We still have our piston guide in the center. Venting from behind the piston from the spring actually drops into where the where the screws were on the first version.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said that's a cool part.
Yeah, yeah. So if we do a section here, you can kind of see what we're talking about. So yeah, for the piston to move freely or whatever, you want to vent that air behind the spring. Plus, if there's if the main seal failed for some reason, you're not going to build pressure and have your rig go go max output. It will vent off, and that'll be an indicator. If you have an O-ring leak, you'll have air coming out these 3 ports on the outside of the knob. And
just so they're clear, we're referring to the piston O-ring.
Yes, yeah. So if that were to fail for whatever reason, it wears out, dries out, whatever, you don't want pressure to build up on both sides of that, and then the regulator to go to whatever the max out would basically be the operating pressure of the marker itself. But anyway, this will vent the pressure, and then that will be kind of like an indicator. Oh, my piston O-ring needs to be maintenance, replaced, right, lubed, whatever.
Right.
What else do you want to touch on?
Yeah, and so like Joshua was saying, we really like this knob design, kind of like kind of that tribute to Shock Tech, kind of these groove slots around. I think it's really neat. But a couple cool things that we did was basically kind of machine it out, make it lighter, make it more visually appealing. The idea for these side grooves is basically, if you were to take a shot through the front, instead of kind of going down into the body, they're going to basically, first off, the key is don't get shot, right? Especially in your autococker parts, because we all know how that is. But the idea would be that if you're shot from the side, basically the channel then scoops through the front, or vice versa, through the front and out through the side. So it's kind of a really cool visual look as well. And then Joshua, do you want to explain to them where the kind of tensioning O-ring is going to go, and kind of how that, or also the bottoming, anti-bottoming kind of features and other things that we have in it?
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to the spring design as well. You don't want to take a spring all the way to solid or coiled coil. That tends to degrade the life of the spring. It also can change the characteristics of the spring. So we designed a positive stop on the piston so that the spring can't go all the way to solid, and also the knob will bottom out on the body so that you can't go over our desired pressure range, which is basically 0 to about 110 psi or 100 psi, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. There's plus or minus depending on the spring manufacturing and other tolerance stack ups. Yeah, so basically you shouldn't be able to damage the spring, and you shouldn't be able to go over what we think is an ideal peak pressure.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what Gant was touching on there. So, mm-hmm. And then the O-ring. So we added an O-ring groove here that will kind of lock. It'll keep the rate from adjusting when it's not pressurized, and it also keeps any ingress of debris or paint getting into the threads of the assembly as well. So
right, and you can see we have kind of like the little bosses on the front of the piston, on the back of the adjuster.
You're talking about for the spring seat.
Yeah, it kind of
isn't to scale, but it's just there as a representation. But right, these 2 bosses will align the spring so it's not floating around inside the body as well.
Right. Joshua, do you know one cool shot to show? Are you able to show the stock Shock Tech piston in this design, or is that too difficult to pull up right now?
I don't have it modeled, but I can show you the sketch that kind of represents where.
No big deal if not. I thought it was just a cool representation for people to see, like, how much larger this chamber has gotten.
Yeah, so if the stock Shock Tech piston was in here, the front face would be at this edge here, and then there'd be an O-ring and O-ring. This is a little further back because we increased the volume by moving that piston face back as well, or forward, depending on how you look at it. But the rough idea is you can see that the stock piston actually fills up this volume all the way up to here. So we gain that volume as well as the volume we picked up here, and also in cutting out the inside of this, which we're able to do because it's not a two-piece, so we don't need that meat in there for the threads. So we were able to machine this out, similar to a lot of the newer guns where they're hogging out the inside of the bodies to get more volume inside of them. Think CS3 or whatever.
Yeah. There's some interesting machining down inside this tube through the middle section and the back end.
You see, it's not concentric, so we have the meat on the one side for the threads, but then it's machined out on the other side to gain volume.
Mm-hmm. And real quick, why we're kind of showing this, why you want to pull up the next, I don't know, I think I've shown a few of these off. These are just kind of some samples. You guys, so a lot of the different options we have raw. We're going to try and anodize some of these in a clear as well, and then also black, and just kind of did some samples. They look sick, you guys. I mean, either one of these combos, well, obviously, when you guys start to custom anodize all the F6 projects, can't wait to see what those look like with the gold chambers and everything coming through kind of the cutout. But even the black, all black pneumatics, kind of like with this kind of has more kind of a duller finish on screen, right? But as far as seeing these, I mean, they look awesome. So go ahead, Joshua.
No, so yeah, the next thing we were going to touch on was the three-way design.
Yeah, let me think real quick. I can't remember. I think we played with a chamfer on the front of the ram a little bit. Other than that, it's pretty much how we had it, plus shock techs parts.
This one, yeah.
I think we increased the chamfer on the ram a little. I can't remember.
No, we added one at the back here.
Okay. The other thing that I'll point out that that is really cool and we appreciate from Danny, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Shock Tech has had all kind of just same type of thing we're talking about, just a lot of little revisions on a lot of their parts. So they've got the new front integrated ram bumper, all of his Gen 2 type, or I'm not sure what gen he's on, but instead of that bumper just living in the front of the ram tube, which I think sometimes if that thing was incorrectly seated or it bounced around, it could cause issues. So the cool part now is in his newest design, basically those two bumpers are integrated so that they'll always stay with the shaft. But all of the parts here are kind of his newest versions, which is pretty neat.
So yeah, then similar to, so yeah, I don't know what we want to touch on with as far as the three-way cosmetics.
How the three-way got adapted was basically kind of working with Danny and talking through it with Danny, making something that was unique, right? Still utilizing the bomb shaft and everything. And so kind of we took it in a different direction to kind of match some of the chambers on the front end, still have these kind of high flow exhaust ports. And we're coining this one the torpedo. So, kind of playing off the bomb theme. Real quick, before we go back into the three-way, Joshua, I wanted to point out one other thing I can kind of see there. The other thing that we did with the one piece, actually, we did this in the three-way as well. How we have these currently machined, I mean, they come out really nice. So with the barb locations, we actually, through kind of recommendation with the manufacturer as well, we've recess those a little. So basically those can be machined, and of course the spiral pattern can come over top, but you see those are kind of recessed for the three-way, and as well as how you had it previously, Joshua, with the LPR, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, you're talking about.
Yep.
This here.
So that should have a very clean pattern right over top of it. I'm trying to think.
We're not interrupting the spiral flutes, if you will.
Correct. So yeah, just something a little bit different there to kind of tie everything all in. So yeah, as far as the pneumatics, was there anything else you want to touch on pneumatics wise?
I don't think so. Like I say, it's the cosmetics are a little different than a standard bomb, but again, it was it's the twister take on that design. So internally, the geometry is the same as the whatever generation bomb he's on right now. But yeah, so I think that was all it. You guys are all familiar with the LPR, the Rams. It's a Ram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then of course the LPC and everything.
To Gan's point, so we're using Shock Tech's shaft the hex coupler, his valve, and the 3-way pin, and what else? I think that's it. I think that's everything.
Yep.
So.
Yep, and all the standard barbs and everything. And of course, as you guys remember, if you had, and this was kind of some confusion, but if you have an F6, you already have a twister LPC in your kit. So you guys just need to, and we tried to clarify that on the website, just you could click on the F6 option. So you just really needed the rest of the pneumatics. And real quick, I wanted to touch on one other thing, Joshua. Pneumatics wise, so I will tell you guys, we've made 400 sets of pneumatics. We're going to hold back a certain number of those for other products that we want to work on with them and different things of that nature. So 200, we've already sold 200 kits. I'm trying to think, I edited on the website. What we tried to do was, I'm trying to say 20, 40, 60, 80. I think there's 120 sets that are available for sale. 20 in
pre-order, in essence.
What's that?
For pre-order.
Correct. Yeah. So, basically this is a one-time project, you guys. So if you've got a gun that you want to put these on, you've got a twister, you've got a newer twister, an older twister, right? They're basically going to be there, right? So aside from the amount that we're holding back, I've tried to update the website to reflect about 20 in each category, right? So if you wanted to clear with LPC or no LPC, there'll be 20 of each of those options, right? And of course, if we have a bunch of people who end up wanting to switch to black or whatnot, we can kind of adjust through those quantities. But just kind of want to put that out there. So
yeah, rough idea, or rough quantities that are theoretically are available.
Correct. Yeah. So what we've made, what we've sold, what we have available, and what we're holding back, right? So gives you guys some options.
Okay. That's not what we wanted.
So as you guys know too, we made a whole bunch of other parts, right? So we have all the titanium components. We've already been testing prototypes of all these. We wanted to show you guys all the little revisions that we made. And Joshua, I'll let you.
So there's the prototype twister cocking rod and beaver tail, tactics beaver tail.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the titanium parts, Joshua, with turned down?
Here, it's creepy how light they feel. They're super nice parts.
Yeah.
The titanium's really cool.
It is super cool. And kind of we were telling you guys earlier, once we made the cocking rod, it was kind of like, well, if we did a beaver tail, those have to match. And actually those parts, when they play together, you see that kind of thin cocking rod and the thin beaver tail. It's really neat.
Yeah, the step down that we did. So because they're titanium, they're a little stronger in steel. So we're able to thin them out. But you get, yeah, the advantage of the lightweight and the reduced size is kind of a sharp thing. Plus, yeah. I'm pretty excited and pretty happy about our integrated bumper.
Oh man, I love that.
That's pretty cool feature.
That's slick.
And they just slip in. There's a little shoulder that captures the bumper. So obviously you'll be able to replace them if we don't see these really wearing out, but if you needed to, you can get replacements for them.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to add one thing, you guys. One thing that we're trying to do, and we'd always like to try and do, is like even, and Joshua, you'll probably speak to this as well. Like, so obviously we try and make these things as best as we can on screen. Then we want to prototype them. And if there's things that we still want to improve in the prototypes, we're going for it. Like I think at the end of the day, we want to put out the best product that we can and have all the little features that we wanted. So even with all of these parts, we're already reprototyping again, and kind of, Joshua, if you want to take them through a couple of the little changes we've done.
Yeah, and I think most of them were, well, no, some were functional. So on the beaver tail itself, we added flats and some locking set screws so that you'll be able to basically lock the beaver tail. Anybody's had an autococker with this style of beaver tail, you bump it and it misaligns. Yep. So we wanted to, I mean, it still theoretically could happen because the back part could spin on you, but if you Loctite that in place and then use the flats and the set screws, it'll kind of maintain that that positioning or that alignment of the beaver tail. Mm-hmm. So we clipped a couple corners to kind of make it a little bit more less hot spots, less points or whatever. Yeah. And then what else did we touch on? I think a few chamfers to clean up edges.
Right.
Testing.
Yeah, having looked at the beaver tail, really happy with the rear beaver tail hoop. It looks really clean. The rods are super light. Like I said, when you guys see them in person, like when they're turned down, it's just such a really cool high level detail to a kind of just a normal part that it's kind of always been. And of course, if you guys recall or have watched our previous video, we have the tool Allen key access removal, right? So if you need to twist that out, but kind of building off what Joshua was saying there, yeah, we got that in all the parts, which is pretty neat. And I'll tell you, having tested that and used it, like when we're testing all the prototypes, the cocking rod is so helpful, right? Just being able to, if you get it stuck in there or it's too tight against the nylon set screw or something, just being able to just take that with the
you're not having to grab a pair of pliers, mar up the shaft or mar up the knob.
We're hoping to reduce a lot of, idiot marks, as they say, right? We've all done it, right? But just real quick on the beaver tail, instead of relying on Loctite just to secure both of those, basically what we wanted to do was add that flap. So once you screw it in, you can find that point, lock it on the flap from both sides, both directions. So you're going to have the same, those are what, 6/32?
Sounds right. I think
they're 6/32. So you've got 4 6/32 lock screws, set screws, right? 2 to the bottom of the base so that you're not getting the shift. And then also you have 2 on the sides, which is going to keep the beaver tail hopefully very well positioned. And then of course you'll just Loctite the rear part. And as far as Joshua was saying about the, and I have these, I need to send these to you as well, Joshua, unless you're going to ship those back to me. We've also been testing lots of new bumpers. So bumper wise, and I know it's very hard to see this, you guys, but we very slightly increased the length and we're playing around with a few more durometers. These worked fine, but we're just, we want to make sure that things are as best as they can be. So we're playing around with a few more durometers. But yeah, the snap feature is super cool. It's very integrated. You're not going to have the bumper bouncing around, coming unloose. The other really cool thing is, you guys know when you're adjusting your cocking rod in or out for the back block spacing, sometimes if your bumper is too tight, you kind of have that force pushing against you, or vice versa. When you're threading it back, you got to then scoot the bumper back. Here, because it's snapped in, it's integrated, and it actually doesn't even touch the shaft there. Basically, it just moves with the cocking rod, it's really cool.
Yeah. So the idea of the bumper is larger than the rod itself. So.
Right. You want to take them through kind of what we did with the knobs, Joshua? Just kind of little tweaks.
I think the only thing we did was the chamfer larger on the twister, just kind of mirror the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, match. I think
that was the only change there. Everything else. You see, what's
that? The other thing we did on the bottom was we reduced the number of slots.
Oh, that's right. So it kind of matched the spacing between slots on some of our other slotted Attactus kind of styled parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of like the knob, the LPX. Right. The other thing we did with the there are a couple other things. We also shortened the length of the beaver tail.
Yeah.
Brought it in as tight as possible. And
the original one was kind of based off of a standard older WGP, what we realized most guns now have a shorter, more compact back block. So we shortened our beaver tail to kind of match the later models of autocockers with the smaller back blocks, not the big traditional chunky back blocks. Yeah,
just try and get everything as close as possible. If you have where your cocking rod's set, you don't want your beaver tail back out here, because the further that beaver tail is, right, then it's, kind of. So we just want to get that as tight as possible. So hopefully those little adjustments we made will do that. And then also, Joshua, I know that we also changed the cocking rod lengths.
Yeah, we increased the length of the cocking rod a little bit. Again, measured a half a dozen different rods and kind of picked an average, and then it was a little shorter, or no, it was a little, I forget, it was a little shorter than, I guess, compared to maybe Shock Tech or, I'm trying to think of the other ones. Again, we measured so.
It's all blurring at this point. I was going to say, I just wanted to build some backstory to this. You guys know one of the hardest parts of making autococker parts is the compatibility. And there are so many different autococker parts. There are different length hammers and all of these different things, and things that work better in one setup versus the other. And really the easiest way to do it is just make your own parts so that you can just have your own compatibility, right? But of course, we love to build parts, we love to build autocockers, and we love to mix and match. So we're really just trying to nail that as best as possible so that you can have something that's functional for your setup. But Joshua, you had another great suggestion too, like another thing that you could do as well. If I think this is going to nail exactly what we need, but you want to walk them through your other suggestion, but I think it's just a good idea.
So I think you're alluding to like hammers with different length hammers, different depth threads. So, and that's kind of where the, if you wanted to bottom the rod out in the hammer, if you have a hammer that's has a deeper thread in it, then all of a sudden your rod's too short, or you know what I mean? So we toyed with going with a really, really long rod, but then we thought, well, what if we just drop, I think what we're gonna do is offer with the when you get one of our caulking rods, it'll come with a set screw that will kind of fill up some of that volume if you happen to have a hammer that has a deeper,
potentially
1032 hole in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that you basically, instead of, again, because we couldn't nail down a perfect length for every single setup out there, we're like, okay, we'll pick what we think is ideal and then offer a small set screw to kind of set back that rod if you need it to be a little longer.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that Joshua pointed out too is those cross holes for the tools. We added a nice little chamfer there just to make sure that those were very clean. And the other thing that we did too was we moved the hole position forward so that if you did end up in one of those weird scenarios where you had to have the caulking rod really short, we didn't want to also cover up the tool access removal hole. You know what I mean?
Trying to see if I can mock that up real quick.
And you guys can kind of see here in the picture too, we brought the length of the bumper out a little bit. Functionally as well, but also from an aesthetic standpoint, it just
you have to back the set screw out of it.
So now we've gone, previously the current caulking rods, right? You've got that huge fat bumper. It's much bigger than the OD of the knob itself. Now we've kind of, because we've recessed it down inside, it's just kind of it's a cleaner take on it that we're trying to do.
Yeah, so you see if you needed to shorten it a lot, you start covering that hole. So we shifted it forward. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing we found from testing that Gant pointed out is we put a chamfer, so when you do put a wrench in there, you don't get a little burr pushed up on that corner.
Yep.
From wrenching on it.
Yeah. And the other thing with these guys, we're going to make a set amount. I mean, obviously we'd love to have as many parts as we can in stock and whatnot, but we're going to make a set amount of these to start and see how everything goes. So if you haven't grabbed any of these titanium components, a lot of you guys have, but make sure you grab them. And just in this pre-order phase, because we had a lot of people reach out to us as well, a lot of you guys have custom guns right now that are completely built with anodized knobs, but you wanted just to change out the titanium shaft. So just in this pre-order phase, so we don't end up in a scenario where we're mixing and matching parts, or we have knobs that don't have rods, we're letting you pre-order just the rod itself if you have a custom gun that you want to just put your knob on, right? So if you want to change out. So just kind of a little side note there. Anything else you can think of with these, Joshua?
No, I think we hit on everything. It wasn't too many tweaks to these, but a few adjustments after our first round of prototyping.
Yep.
So that just leaves us with the pump arm.
Yep. And real quick, you guys, I know a lot of you guys have been asking us about the pump arm. I'd say the pump arm has been the most challenging one of the group. Would you say, Joshua? The pneumatics aside.
So surprisingly, yeah, of the rods, yeah, the pump arm was. Again, consistency from one manufacturer to the next manufacturer. We measured a number of no-name pump arms, CCM, AKA, Inception, trying to nail down what the offset is between the ram bore and the center line of where it threads into the back block, clearance between the assembly and the body. It's been
assembly. I'm sorry.
You make some assumptions and find out those assumptions were wrong, and stuff rubs, and yeah.
So yeah, just kind of letting you guys know. A lot of you guys have been messaging us about the pump arm. You've already grabbed the other titanium components, and I know that you guys are interested in this as well. So just want to let you know we have been working on this, and we just really want to make sure it's dialed in. And like Josh was saying, some of the complexity in this part is not only do you have all the clearances, you have the body clearances, the front block clearances. If it's not been clear, we're working on full length, mini, and kind of a half block. Yeah, mid or half block length as well. So the idea is that we'll have all three lengths. worst, the idea is eventually for that, but if we have to just, you know, because I know a lot of you guys are wanting to get all the components for the F6, if we have to launch the full length at first, we will. But Joshua, do you want to take them through some of the kind of the different things that on the front and the back end that we kind of improved upon?
Yeah, so from the initial prototyping, we increased the length of the front coupler to.
And you have the prototype with you, Joshua.
Yeah. Yep. So it's in the half block mini configuration. One of the challenges we saw is with like some rams with more threading on it. We wanted to be able to fully thread onto that ram and then still have our integrated set screw for locking it. The idea there is you don't have to lock tight everything. You can just assemble it to the proper length and then tighten down a set screw and you're good to go. So we increased the length of the front coupler so it'll accommodate all rams, hopefully, in theory. And then also with that, we increased the engagement of the rod section itself into the front and back couplers. Trying to think where we want to go with that. So just more meat there, more engagement, more strength. Don't know if this model has.
And
anyway,
we're leaving the broach in the backside of the coupler, correct? Still, I think so.
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, there will be a flat, so you can grab it depending on what back block you're running or whatever. You can either grab it from the broach in the back, or with the wrench on the flats here, again to assemble or disassemble or adjust.
Right.
The other cool thing about this three-piece design is you can kind of, I mean, ideal world, this is fully threaded and Loctite, or not Loctite. Yeah, I think we're going to Loctite this one.
Yeah, I think we want it. So we originally had 3 points of adjustments that you could do, but we want to just kind of maybe get it down to 2.
Yeah, so you'll be able to adjust, obviously, like a normal rod. You can adjust the ram into the coupler here. But also, if you needed a little bit more length on it, you can back the front coupler off the rod. Again, you'll have your locking set screw that lives up here.
On both sides. On both sides.
The ram and the rod will have a set screw to kind of lock them in place. So again, you can gain a little bit, you know, to dial in. Again, depending on the different setups, all different parts out there, if you needed to adjust the length of the rod slightly. Can't think of a specific scenario you'd want to do that, but it is a possibility if you need to adjust your rod a little longer. Get a little more engagement on, say, on your ram or something like that, right? There's some stack up with the body front block ram you're using. Yeah, that's hopefully the plan.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is it should make, we're not trying to get the bends in the rod just right. We'll use the same front and rear coupler on all the various sizes. You'll just change out, or you just have, we'll sell them obviously with whatever size, but you just have a different size center section that's just a straight threaded piece of titanium.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, this is just kind of mocked up in kind of a gold color, but we're going to go, all 3 of these components are going to be titanium, which the prototype as well. So again, and it's extremely light, but also we're maintaining that strength there, but also it's not relevant. I mean, it's not apparent on screen, but that OD of that center section rod is much thinner than you're used to.
So typically a rod's around 3/16 or 0.1875, which is this diameter here. So you can see we step the shaft or the rod part of it down. Same with our cocking rod and pump arm. They're roughly, what is the diameter on it? It's like 3.75 millimeters, or I think it's like 150 thousandths roughly. Yeah, 150 thousandths diameter. So yeah, skinny it up, take a little weight off. I mean, we're talking about nothing, very little weight, but you know, any performance part, you're squeezing out every little ounce.
For sure.
Yeah, every little cool factor or whatever you can do. So that was kind of the idea behind it.
Well, even weighing the titanium components to current products out there that are full stainless, right? It's pretty wild, right? And especially a lot of people going Lazarus valves and whatnot, you know, so you don't really need all.
So if you really want that low mass for your balanced Lazarus valves or whatever the Nova one, what do they call theirs?
I'm not sure what the name of it is.
I forget what the name of theirs is. But yeah, so if you're using that style valve, you know, you want lower mass on the hammer rod. So obviously, Angry has his Jenny Craig hammers, which lighten up the hammer itself.
Yep.
You still have all the mass in your stainless steel rod or whatever else. So
right.
if you're going that route, these titanium ones, they'll kill it.
Yeah, and just to recap the pump arm, guys, full titanium. The ODs are a lot thinner than you're used to. The idea behind the rear coupler, we did have a set screw that we were going to use in there, but we don't from the prototype, we don't think that's the right direction to go through. So basically what Joshua was saying, and let me just preface this. We're trying to get the rod lengths fully built exactly where you need to have them, but we are building in a little bit of fine tuning for either that longer back block or shorter back block, or just a little bit variation. Some gun builders even like to have their gun body a little bit longer, right? It's kind of, little variations that we've seen, but hopefully in the adjustments on the front half, you could probably dial it in exactly where you need. And again, as Josh was mentioning, we've introduced a locking set screw to both shafts on the front end. So you're going to be able to lock in the ram and lock in the shaft, the main section shaft. And we've added this unique cut in the front to get more clearance, because what we found, and Joshua, in building his, Joshua, you want to show them the setup that you had?
So we found, at least with the Inception front blocks, they kind of protrude a little further than a normal front block or the cut in the body. So you probably see that little tiny ding right there. That's where the prototype had ran into it. So we introduced, the original prototype didn't have that little nose that you can see on the screen. So by adding that, we should clear that front block, or if there's any others out there, I can't think of one off the top of my head that has that issue. Yeah.
Like you said, the Inception kind of didn't have a whole bunch of clearance there, but a lot of the stock or back block, front blocks built off of the WGP had a lot more clearance. But regardless, we've made a lot of little tweaks to getting this as tight, as close to the pump arm channel as possible without interfering with the body, as well as taking into account the front block. So yeah, just a lot of little tweaks on this. People I know are wanting to pre-order this already. What's your thought, Joshua? We're going to keep, we're 100% going to make another prototype.
Yeah, I think we're there. We ran into some issues with the first one, which is why I didn't go up and pre-order at the same time as the other parts.
Yeah.
But once we get this final prototype here, which hopefully we'll order in the next couple days.
And guys, I just wanted to say about the pre-order thing, like we appreciate you guys. Like, we don't want all these parts floating out there in pre-order, but at the same time, it's like, without you guys, a lot of this stuff isn't possible, right? Because this stuff is, as you can imagine, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of effort. We're trying to figure out how many of these to make. It's a lot of stuff. So the pre-order is kind of a double-edged sword, because of course we don't want to be sitting on these things any longer, without you having your products and whatnot, right? But at the same time, some of these things take time, and I just wanted to say, and I know Joshua feels the same way, that we appreciate you guys and kind of supporting our brand and giving us an opportunity to kind of make these products and learn. And you got to keep in mind, like, there's not a lot of new paintball manufacturers right now. I can think of a handful right now that haven't been in the game for 10, 15, 20 years, right? We haven't even been doing this for a year, right? We've learned a lot, we're learning a lot, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for helping us do that. So
100%.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that was it. Is there anything else you want to touch on, Gap?
I think that's it. So that's all the newest Twister prototypes. That's all the revisions that we made. Every part got tweaked. Every part is getting tweaked. But so time frame wise, I think for Twister Pneumatics, the full prototype is being made now. We're actually doing one in gloss black anodized, so I think that'll be a very cool representation. Of course, we have to test it, so we have to, we want it anodized. But right now, we're probably looking at 3 to 4 weeks, depending. I should have those. We should be able to build them, should be able to test. The spring will be in that time. I've got all the other components. And of course, we're also prototyping all of the ShockTech LPR upgraded components as well, so we'll be able to do that. But I think that's about it.
I think so.
Yeah. So just wanted to kind of give you guys an update and let you guys know what was going on with the Twister project. And So yeah, we'll keep working on stuff. We'll keep building stuff. We'll keep designing cool stuff. We've been working on a lot of headband heroes. I still have probably 40 pre-orders to get out. So if you haven't gotten one yet, a lot of you guys should have gotten tracking numbers this morning because, of course, with the holiday, it didn't kind of update until first thing on Tuesday. But anyways, still working on those. And yeah, that's about it, Joshua. Cool, man. All right, you guys. Well, shoot us a message if you have any questions. If you guys need us to work on anything order-wise or whatnot, or you know, if you have a question, just shoot us a message. All right. Thank you guys so much.
See ya.
See you.